Okay, Terminator Genesis. I keep wanting to call it that. Terminator Dark Fate comes out tomorrow on Blu-ray and DVD. I'm going to go get it tomorrow. Oh, you bet your sweet ass I am. So I figured now is the time to start talking about the Terminator franchise. Before I start though, open up a Dadu. Take a swig. Take one more. So, as I usually do, I'm going to tell you about my history with the franchise. I did not grow up with this franchise. I knew about it. I wouldn't say my childhood was sheltered, but I did grow up with a lot of kid bubbly bullshit. To this day, I still watch a lot of kid stuff, whether it's with my son or it's on my own. Most of it is from my childhood. There are some things from when my brother was a kid. Even some of the stuff that my son watches really catches my eye too, like Henry Danger or Thunderman or something like that, you know. So, you know, especially if it's like Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon has always been for me something that I've always watched, whether I was a kid or I'm an adult now. And they got that Pluto TV app that has a Nickelodeon channel that plays old stuff, so that's kind of cool. I was watching that. But that's off topic. The thing is, I didn't have much of the upbringing of other YouTubers, say like Cody Leach, who grew up with his dad, didn't care and let him watch horror movies and stuff. For me, that wasn't it. My grandma was like that. She didn't care. I watched like Child's Play and Beverly Hills Cop, stuff like that. But my mom wouldn't let me get away with that. So except for she let me watch Scream when I was 10. So was I out of high school, I think, at this point? I think I was. I went to the library. At the time, they still had VHSs at the library. So I rented the first one and the second one on VHS from the library. And my grandma had the third one on DVD. That's why I'm like, oh, Terminator 3. I should try to find the other ones. And they had the VHSs. Could have got the DVDs. They had the VHSs there. It was easier. My grandma had a VCR. I had a VCR at the time. Watched them. I watched the first one. Really enjoyed it. Watched the second one. Awesome. Watched the third one. Really enjoyed that one. I don't mind Salvation. I've only seen it once. Maybe twice. Still think it's alright. Genesis. Think it's alright. Dark Fate, think it's alright. I've not hated a single entry in this franchise. But you go back to this first franchise, even before I rewatched it, even before I started rewatching it, I remembered it. I do things sometimes when I watch a movie, I can start planning out my review. Like halfway through this movie, I started just kind of putting out plot points and my own kind of ideas, and yeah, it's very obvious. You know, James Cameron he's not one of those that makes a movie that starts or keeps a franchise going. Look at Aliens, right? It was a sequel, right? James Cameron did Aliens, right? But that is a sequel to Alien. It's good. Did he leave off that maybe they could continue? Yes. But then at the same time, you can think, oh, they could have just survived and floated along. And somebody came along and ruined that with Alien 3. Absolutely. But you could also say, oh, no more Alien films and they survived and went on to have happy lives. Same here. It's very obvious with this film. Look at Avatar, right? That was my argument in my little talk through, but look at Avatar. That movie came out in 2009. And there wasn't even an idea of a sequel until like a year later. And it's taken 10 years. Still don't know if we're getting one this year. Avatar 2 or not. Like, Avatar 2 is still on the table, but they have Avatar 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 planned. But the fact that it's taken 10 years maybe more to get this sequel, to get an Avatar 2, means that Cameron is not just doing this, going in to make money, to just go in and cash in a cheap sequel. He wants to do this right. So you go into Terminator, and it's very obvious this was supposed to be a standalone film. Because certain plot points in some of the sequels kind of negated the effect of this film as you go along. Here, it's very obvious that Kyle Reese was sent back to copulate with Sarah so that she could give birth to John. But he also had to save Sarah from the Terminator. It's very obvious that this Terminator in the first film was going to be sent back. Always going to be sent back. Because it had to be sent back so that Kyle Reese can be sent back to copulate with Sarah. Get the bang boom going so that she could give birth to John. It always had to happen that way. I would surmise it to say that it could have been John himself who sent the Terminator back, then said, oh, we gotta send someone to take the Terminator out. That's not how it happened. Don't at me. I'm just saying. I wouldn't be opposed to a future Terminator movie doing that. Revealing that John sent the Terminator first, then sent Kyle Reese to destroy it. Because it had to happen that way. Because think about this. I know they say it's a contingency plan that Skynet had. But I've always thought it's weird that if Skynet is defeated, how can it send Terminators back? And now future sequels have switched that around and showed you, okay, it's a contingency plan. But when I first saw this, my thought was, how can Skynet, if they have already lost, send a Terminator back? And I kind of had the thought, what if John sent the Terminator back to go after his mom, so Reese would have to go back after it to destroy it, to copulate with his mother, because it's never told one way or another if John Connor knew that Reese was his father, but in future sequels, it's obvious he knew. But it's an idea for thought. What if John Connor sent the first Terminator back and then sent Reese to destroy it, knowing Reese would destroy it because that's the way history was written? Something has to happen. Because, I've seen TV shows, movies do this. Why isn't this happening? What's going on? I send it back. What if John Connor realized he was the one that has to send it back because they destroyed Skynet? Now, Genesis negates this idea. Sure, fine. Genesis negates a lot of things. Is it a bad movie? No. It's just not one of the good ones. It's okay, in my opinion. I don't dislike any of the films in this franchise. For a while, Salvation was kind of soured on me, but when I get to 3, I'll explain why I was sour on Salvation when it first came out. But we'll get to that. But for this film, it's very obvious that they weren't planning to have sequels. If there was an option to do one, they could. But to me, this was it feels like this was supposed to be one and done. It showed us, the end of this had Sarah in her Jeep. She's pregnant. She's recording these tapes. So for me, she could have died between this one and the second one. And those tapes. Have the Terminator be the only one with John Connor. And John Connor's been alone this entire time, except for a foster family that doesn't get along with him. And so he's got to try to get his human emotion back. And he's got to connect with this Terminator that has no human emotion. And then suddenly that connection that he builds with the Terminator in the second film means a little bit more. Meaning that he has to build his human connection back after pushing away his foster parents, not being with his mother. His only friend is the stoop kid from Hey Arnold. And so he's got to build his humanity back while also helping this Terminator with no humanity kind of come to grip with his. You know what I mean? And I know this is going into the second one, but I'm just saying, what would it be like if Sarah wasn't in the second one? And then, you know, it would have been a different narrative, because how would they get to Miles Dyson and Cyberdyne and all that stuff? Sure, he can, you know, talk to the Terminator. Terminator can give him, you know, information. Sure, you can go to Miles Dyson and say, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that, stuff like that. The whole thing could still happen. But is Sarah necessary? No. Is it okay for her to be back? Yes. And we'll get to that with the second one, because I have a couple of things about that one. Even though it is one of the greatest action movies of all time, it's always bugged me, especially with Sarah's character, the way they used her in that. The way her character was. But in this one, you know, it's, you know, there's a question when they have Kyle Reese in getting questioning by Silverman, and he's telling him all the stuff that's supposed to happen. And he asks him, you know, if he's coming specifically for Sarah, why kill the other two? Well, he only has the name. He doesn't know the middle name. He doesn't know where she lives. He just knows the name, Sarah Connor. So, yeah, that makes sense. He's programmed to kill Sarah Connor. And she knows she's in the Los Angeles area. So, three Sarah Connors in the Los Angeles area just go door to door. It makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. You know all the files. And that's another thing that makes me point towards, what if John sent the Terminator back? Didn't give the middle name, didn't give the location. Because you think Skynet, if it was Skynet that sent the Terminator back, it would give him all the information, right? It would know. But if John Connor sent it back, he would give just a little information to set it on its way, so that eventually Kyle Reese could defeat it and find a way to save his mother. It's just an idea. With this film, if this was the only film in the franchise, you could theorize for hours about what actually went on in that future. We never got to see anything with the future, so we don't know. But now we've had all these sequels, it's kind of, our imagination's kind of just. But if this was the only film in the franchise, if Terminator went down as one of the greatest, you know, action horror slasher films, by itself, to never have a sequel, you could theorize for hours just trying to figure out, well, what if John Connor did it and not, you know. Future sequels have changed that. Yes, I know, but it's just a thought. When I first watched this, I'm sitting there going, I know there's a sequel. What if John Connor did it? What if this whole thing, what if, you know, everything that Reese said was true, but John sent the Terminator back without Reese knowing, so that Reese could defeat it and fulfill the prophecy that was supposed to happen? What if, I know I went in this already, I can't repeat myself sometimes, but what if John Connor realized, wait, we just defeated Skynet, how can they send a Terminator back? What if I have to do it? What if I have to send the Terminator on my own mother? It's just an idea, you know. But as for this film, I really like this film. You know, from the performances of Michael Bain to Linda Hamilton, even Lance Henriksen, who has a cameo in this, is pretty good. And if you didn't know, when Cameron pitched this idea, if you didn't know, Cameron came up with this idea. He was wrapping Piranha 2. He had a dream that a mechanical torso was coming after him with a knife. And so he pitched this idea with Lance Henriksen playing the Terminator to the studios, and they loved it. And then they had to find someone to play. Originally, they wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger to play Kyle Reese. And had someone. And if he was going to play Kyle Reese, they needed like Sylvester Stallone or Mel Gibson, someone like that, to play the Terminator. And also, they had an idea that O.J. Simpson was going to play the Terminator, but Cameron said no to that. And eventually, after meeting with Arnold, he realized, no, I want Arnold to be the Terminator. although Arnold was not sold on this movie at all. While doing an interview for Total Recall for Conan the Destroyer, he was wearing some weird shoes, like Terminator-like shoes, and they asked him what it was, and he goes, "Oh, it's for some shit movie I'm doing." So he didn't think highly of it at all, but now, I bet you after all these years and all these sequels, he thinks a little bit more of it, at least. But, yeah, just the thought that O.J. Simpson could have been the Terminator, and Stallone playing Kyle Reese, or maybe the Terminator even after that, but then they wanted someone who Star Wars on the rise, and Michael Bain maybe had it, his Star Wars on the rise a little bit. After this, he would go on to be in Aliens, also directed by James Cameron, so... And I'm not a big Michael Bain fan, but whenever I see him, I'm like, oh, hey, it's Michael Bain, that's pretty cool. But yeah, just this film, the overall idea, there is one scene that gets me laughing every time. It's a super serious film, but after Kyle Reese gets to 1984, and there's a homeless man, the cops show up, and Kyle Reese goes running off, and he sees the homeless man, and he goes, "Hey, you stole my pants!" I remember when I first watched it, I'm like, it's supposed to be serious. "Hey, you stole my pants!" It's like, oh, that's like one of the only funny lines in this. I mean, there are probably other ones, but I don't know if I caught them. But it's just like, yeah, there's definitely more funny lines in the second one than this one, but like, oh, also, you're dead, honey. When her co-worker shows the news story about the Sarah Connor that was murdered, and she goes, "Bang, you're dead, honey," or something like that. "You're dead, honey." Something that makes me laugh too, but I think, and it puts into question, I saw this. The Terminator shows up, kills Sarah's roommate and the roommate's boyfriend, and thinks he's done the job. If Sarah hadn't called at that particular moment, he'd have been done. Which begs the question, if the Terminator had succeeded in his mission, what happens to the Terminator after it? What happens to the Terminator after he successfully finishes his mission? He cannot self-terminate. So he cannot, blow himself up or anything. He can self-terminate. What does he do? Just shut down? Huh? Has that ever been answered? I think maybe in the TV series they messed with that. I don't remember. That was a good TV show. Why they canceled after 2 seasons. The ending alone to that show needs to be answered. But anyway, it comes to the question, what if he succeeded? What would happen to the Terminator after that? Would he explode? Can't self-terminate. Would he shut down? Who knows? I think if he was going to succeed, then Sarah would have died, but Kyle Reese would have survived, and he would have had Kyle Reese destroy the Terminator anyway. So he wouldn't have to answer the question, in that way. But they didn't go that way, and Sarah did not die, at least between the second and third films. But all in all, guys, this movie is pretty good. The special effects, even on Blu-ray, watching it on Blu-ray, special effects actually kind of hold up. They're not that bad. There are some shots of the stop motion Terminator that sometimes you go, other than that, it's alright. It really makes you marvel that the stuff that blows up actually blowing up. Same thing with Terminator 2. Stuff is actually blowing up. It's amazing what James Cameron does. I'm surprised I don't have others in his. Well, I have some. I have Aliens, I have Titanic, Avatar, and he did. What's the other Arnold movie he did? True Lies. I have that one too. So yeah, yeah. So all in all, guys, Terminator to me, you gotta give it a 9 out of 10. Gotta give it a 9 out of 10. So what are your thoughts on the Terminator? Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll be back.